Today we are going to be making an apricot orange scone. We're using these beautiful apricots from Turkey. They've got such beautiful color, nice real plumpness to them. So it's going to be a delicious ingredient in here. So we start with a little bit of flour, and then we add in a few additional dry ingredients. So we have a leavening ingredient, we've got some baking powder, just a little bit of sugar. We don't need to do too much sugar since we're already having some sweetness coming from those apricots. And a little bit of salt in there. So just going to mix these ingredients up a little bit and then add in just a little bit of orange zest, which will be very complementary to the apricots that we'll be using in this recipe. I like to just break that up a little bit to make sure that the flour really picks up the essence of the oils from that orange zest. So now we're going to add in a little bit of butter. So I've cubed up some butter. We're going to just kind of rub this in here. So get in with the ingredients and get this to a point where we have almost like a little pea-sized bits of butter into the flour. In this recipe that we're making today, this is just a half recipe for demo purposes. So normally this recipe would make 8 scones, and today we're just going to be making 4. Nice thing about this recipe too is that if you didn't want to use apricots, you could always add in figs or raisins. So there's a lot of other dried fruits that you would be able to incorporate into this recipe. Just depending upon your taste. If you wanted to add a few nuts in there, you could do that as well. Some pistachios, some hazelnuts, a lot of different types of nuts, walnuts, things that you can add into the mix here. So I have this now pretty well set. So there's no real large chunks of butter into here. And so now we're going to take some of these beautiful apricots. For the amount of scones that we're doing, I'm probably going to use about 5 or 6 apricots here, and just cut these down into some smaller bits so that we can incorporate it throughout the flour mixture. So once I have those how I want them, I'm just going to add that here. And just mix those in here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to incorporate in the wet ingredients into this recipe. So for this we do use heavy cream and vanilla. So I prefer to combine these two together so that again I get a relatively even mixture of wet going into my dry ingredients. And just make a little bit of a well, pour that in. Just to keep my hands a little bit cleaner, I use a spoon to just start to incorporate this. And then we'll go ahead and we will pull all of these ingredients down onto the cutting board and give them a little bit of a knead. Make sure that everything is well combined. We do want the butter, since we're going to be mixing this with our hands and it will get a little bit warm. We like to have that butter really nice and cold when we cut that into our flour. Just start to pull these in together. Just give this a knead just a little bit. We don't want to overwork it because I like to have my scones be really nice and tender. I'm going to press this, and I'll flip it over a few times just as I press it to make sure that it does not stick to the cutting board. And I'll get it to about a half of an inch, 3/4 of an inch or so. I think that it makes for a really nice sized scone. And then once I have that all set, I like to have a little bit of crunch on the top of here. So there's some options. For me, I like to use just this raw brown sugar and put that over the top to add this little bit of crunch. But I think it's also fantastic if you prefer not to have the added sugar. You can actually just leave that off. Take my round here. I'm going to cut it into 4. So we will take and we will cook these in an oven at about 450 degrees. And that way they get a nice quick rise. They're gonna cook for about 16 minutes. So into the oven. All right, so it's been about 16 minutes or so, so now we're gonna go ahead and bring those scones right out of the oven. Nice and warm, beautiful, a little bit of golden color over the top here. I'm just going to take and plate these up. All right, so we're gonna add a few of these apricots on here. Nice little accompaniment to the wonderful scones that have those apricots inside there. They're great for you, so to have them alongside, full of vitamins, nutrients, good for bone health. Again, just these beautiful, beautiful apricots coming out of Turkey. Happy to feature them in this apricot orange scone.